The word adequate means as much or as good as necessary for some requirement or purpose, fully sufficient, suitable, or fit. Hugo and Eric both wanted an individual cupcake to eat. However, they found a huge cupcake that they suspected would be adequate to satisfy their hunger. Sharing the cupcake, they realized that it was indeed adequate and that neither boy needed their own cupcake. Adequate, enough, sufficient, suitable. Agitation. The word agitation means a state of excitement, disturbance, or worry. Jonas experienced great agitation when the teacher put a test on his desk. He felt agitation because he didn't even know that they had a test that day. He didn't study at all, and he knew he would probably fail. Agitation, disturbance, worry, anxiety. Ajar. The word ajar means neither entirely open nor entirely shut, partly open. John saw that the door to his brother's room was ajar. Usually it was entirely shut when his brother was not home, and often even when he was home. He was very private and secretive. However, now that it was left ajar, John took advantage of it and peeked inside to get a look at the room he rarely ever got to see. Ajar, partly open. Cache. The word cache means a hiding place, especially one in the ground, for ammunition, food, treasures, etc. Lane's mother wouldn't let her listen to rock bands because she thought they would influence her badly. After a while, Lane decided that she would need to create a cache in which to store her rock CDs. By lifting the floorboards in her room, Lane found the perfect cache to hide all her music. Cache, hiding place, hoard. Chronological. The word chronological means arranged in the order of occurrence. Robert's parents created a timeline that listed momentous occasions in Robert's life in chronological order. Because it was done in chronological order, Robert's birth naturally came first on the timeline. The next big event that happened chronologically was Robert speaking for the first time, and then Robert started school. Chronological, consecutive, sequential. Clarification. The word clarification means the act of making an idea, statement, etc. clear or intelligible, to free from ambiguity. No matter how hard Joan tried to understand the math problem on the board, it made no sense to her, and she knew she needed some clarification on how to solve it. Everyone else seemed to understand, but she was totally lost. She was very relieved when the teacher stopped writing and explained the equation, giving her clarification on the problem. Clarification, making an idea clear. Explanation, amplification. Countenance. The word countenance means appearance, especially the look of or expression on a face. Kendall loved trying out different countenances to see how she would look. She took photos by herself in the photo book so that she could see how her various expressions turned out. This time, she experimented with a silly countenance, a shocked countenance, and a happy countenance. Countenance, appearance, expression. Dialogue. The word dialogue means a conversation between two or more people. Chelsea and Tawny were best friends who loved to gossip with each other. They frequently called each other and partook in long dialogues about all the latest news at school. When their parents told them that they would have to pay for their own bills, they decided to engage in their dialogues in person instead. Dialogue. Conversation between two or more people. Discussion. Diminish. The word diminish means to make or cause to seem smaller, less important, etc. Lessen. Reduce. Jane wanted to diminish the wrinkles on her face and dark circles under her eyes. She was told that wearing a facial mask 2 times a week would help reduce the appearance of the wrinkles. Putting cucumbers over her eyes, she was also told, might help diminish the dark circles beneath them. Diminish. To lessen. To reduce. Embezzle. The word embezzle means to appropriate fraudulently to one's own use, as with money or property entrusted to one's care. Bob embezzled money from an organization of which he was a member. He embezzled this money in case he lost his job at the office due to a recent round of layoffs. He felt guilty about it, however, and in the end, he wished he hadn't embezzled the money at all. Embezzle. To steal. To misappropriate. Emblem. The word emblem means an object or its representation, symbolizing a quality, state, class of persons, etc. Symbol. The S emblem on Superman's chest is one of the best-known emblems in the world. The emblem represents a lot of different things to different people. It has been most famously known to represent truth, justice, and the American way. And, of course, Superman himself. Emblem. Symbol. Insignia. Logo. Enchant. The word enchant means to subject to magical influence. Bewitch. Henry asked the witch to enchant him with one of her magical spells. She immediately agreed because she loved to enchant people, whether they asked or not. However, having her turn him into a frog was not what Henry had in mind. Enchant. To bewitch. To charm. Fluctuate. The word fluctuate means to change continually, to shift back and forth, to vary irregularly. A pendulum is weight that is suspended from a pivot so that it can fluctuate freely. It constantly swings back and forth on the pivot. Usually a pendulum will travel in a specific pattern, but if it is knocked off balance, it may begin to fluctuate rather than moving in its usual pattern. Fluctuate. To shift back and forth. To vacillate. Foster. The word foster means to promote the growth and development of someone. Nothing was more important to Stella and Richard than their ability to foster intelligence and passion for learning in their child, Stanley. They fostered these qualities in Stanley early on by reading books to him every night. They hoped that he would become the smartest and most active learner in school. Foster. To promote the growth of. To nurture. Gaudy. The word gaudy means brilliantly or excessively showy, flashy, ornamented. Whenever Maria went out for a night on the town, she loved to wear gaudy jewelry. She thought that gaudy jewelry was bold and attention-grabbing, perfect for an exciting evening out. Her favorite piece of jewelry was a gaudy necklace made out of huge, sparkling jewels, and she wore it on all of the most special occasions. Gaudy. Showy. Flashy. Ornamental. Gigantic. The word gigantic means very large, huge. Most people don't consider leaves to be gigantic. They appear fairly small to the average eye. However, to a tiny ant, some leaves can indeed appear gigantic. It's all about perspective. Gigantic, huge, enormous, gargantuan. Handicraft. The word handicraft means a particular skill or art performed with the hands, such as weaving, pottery, etc. Bert loved making handicrafts that he could either give to people as gifts or that he could sell. He enjoyed handicrafts because working with his hands was fun but also challenging. The handicraft he is currently working on is a pot molded out of clay. Handicraft, skill or art performed with the hands. Handwork. Havoc. The word havoc means chaos, disorder, destruction, devastation, ruin. When his parents were away for the night, Phil wreaked havoc on his room. He made a complete mess of everything and destroyed the orderliness that he was supposed to maintain. In the future, his parents might want to hire a babysitter or else look forward to coming home to havoc being wreaked. Havoc, destruction, disorder. Hearth. The word hearth means the floor of a fireplace, especially one that extends outwards into the room. Taylor and Joseph liked to sit by the hearth of the fire on cold winter nights. They drank hot chocolate, talked, and laughed while being warmed up by the fire. Sitting by the hearth was romantic and comforting, and it always made them thankful that Taylor's family had a fireplace in their house. Hearth, floor of a fireplace, fireside. Heartrending. The word heartrending means causing or describing intense grief, distress, or anguish. When Susan discovered that her younger sister had borrowed her brand new dress and then spilled chili sauce all over it, she let out a heart-rending wail. Even after she treated it with a stain remover and washed it several times, her pretty, lacy white dress was now a putrid shade of pale, reddish orange. It was a heart-rending experience because Susan had looked forward to wearing her new dress at the upcoming dance. Heart-rending, distressing, agonizing. Hilarious. The word hilarious means arousing great merriment, extremely funny. Jack and Tad always knew how to make each other laugh. Jack told Tad the most hilarious anecdotes that he came up with on a daily basis because he was training to become a professional comedian. Tad, on the other hand, relied on hilarious jokes out of joke books to make Jack howl with laughter. Hilarious, extremely funny, hysterical, side-splitting. Hospitable. The word hospitable means receiving or treating guests or strangers warmly or generously. When Shanna went to stay with her relatives for summer vacation, she hoped that they would be hospitable toward her. They welcomed her with open arms when she arrived and made her feel like she was home. They were very hospitable and treated her as if she had been living there her whole life. Hospitable, treating guests warmly, welcoming. Ignite. The word ignite means to set on fire, to cause to burn. Although he was able to ignite the small amount of wood he had gathered to make a campfire, Harry soon realized that it would go out soon unless he added more wood. Unfortunately, he was out of branches. Luckily, he saw a large pile of pine cones that had fallen from a nearby tree. When he picked them up and began to throw them into the fire, the cones ignited beautifully, giving Harry just enough flames to roast marshmallows. Ignite, to set on fire, to light, to kindle. Implore. The word implore means to beg someone urgently or piteously for something. Peter was invited to the coolest party of the year, but his father didn't want him to go. He had to get down on his knees and implore his father to allow him to go. He implored his father for permission for hours, and finally his father said that he would let him go under one condition: if he attended the party too as a chaperone. This stopped Peter from imploring any longer. He decided he'd rather stay home. Implore. To beg. To plead. Leisurely. The word leisurely means acting, proceeding, or done without haste, relaxed, unhurried. Craig was often stressed out at work, but he liked to partake in more leisurely pursuits on the weekends. He especially loved to take leisurely strolls with his beloved Dalmatian. There was nothing more leisurely than ambling through the park with his dog on a bright sunny day and whistling a happy tune. Leisurely, unhurried, relaxed. Lethargic. The word lethargic means abnormally lacking energy. Slow, sluggish, drowsy. Ivor was feeling extremely lethargic because he had the flu. He felt like he couldn't do his homework or even go out to play outside. He felt so lethargic that he ended up going to sleep at only 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Lethargic, slow, sluggish, drowsy. Magnitude. The word magnitude means size, usually large, extent, dimensions. When Julian messed up his science experiment, he hoped that the magnitude of the explosion would be minor. However, his hopes were unfortunately dashed. The magnitude of the explosion caused foam to cover his entire face. He decided to read the instructions of the lab next time before starting the experiment. Magnitude, size, extent. Malady. The word malady means any disorder or disease of the body, especially one that is chronic or deep-seated. Rosa had a malady that made her eyes bloodshot, her skin pale, and kept her temperature continually rising. She had to stay home from school for 5 days in order to recover from this terrible illness. At least she got to miss that history test she was sorely unprepared for. Malady, disease, illness. Mar. The word mar means to damage or spoil to a certain extent, render less perfect, attractive, useful, etc. Impair. Claire's painting of her favorite park was perfect at first, and nothing had marred its beauty. At least that was the case until Beth walked by and bumped into Claire by accident. Beth's clumsiness caused Claire to fall forward while she was holding a black paint-covered brush and mar her own painting by creating a long black streak across the canvas. Mar. To damage. To spoil. Massive. The word massive means consisting of or forming a large mass, bulky and heavy. Jason and Alex came across a boulder that was intimidating due to its massive size. They had a difficult time pushing the massive boulder down the street. They were strong men, but the boulder was much too massive and heavy for even them to handle. Massive, large, bulky, heavy. Maternal. The word maternal means of, pertaining to, having the qualities of, or befitting a mother. Miss Stripes had very strong maternal instincts. Growing up, she had always been very warm and caring, and she knew that her maternal nature would serve her well when she had her own baby. She was right. Her maternal ways made her a very loving and protective mother to her beloved son. Maternal. Motherly. Nurturing. Mellow. The word mellow means made gentle or compassionate by age or maturity. Softened. Martin used to be a cranky, dissatisfied young man. However, he became more placid as he aged, even more so when he finally retired from his job. He now likes to sit on his porch and drink lemonade, enjoying his new mellow disposition. Mellow, softened, placid. Mull. The word mull means to think about something carefully, to consider. Unsure of what to write about, George had to mull over what the topic for his personal essay would be. He mulled over different possibilities in his head for a full hour. Finally, a perfect topic came to his mind, and he wrote the essay with confidence and vigor. All the mulling really paid off. Mull, to consider, to ponder. Narrative. The word narrative means a story or account of events, experiences, or the like, whether true or fictitious. Harriet loved the narrative of The Little Red Hen. It was one of her favorite narratives because it was filled with so many interesting characters. Therefore, she was extremely excited when she was chosen to provide the narrative for her class play. Narrative. Story. Account. Nomadic. The word nomadic means characteristic of moving from place to place without settling down permanently. Camels are often nomadic creatures and like to travel from place to place. Many camels never settle down in one particular location. That's why it's no surprise that camels have become a symbol of the nomadic lifestyle. Nomadic. Itinerant. Moving from place to place. Overture. The word overture means an opening or initiating move toward negotiations, a new relationship, an agreement, etc. A formal or informal proposal or offer. It also means the opening piece in a musical or opera. Francesca rarely made overtures of friendship with anyone because she was very shy. Lisa, on the other hand, was very outgoing and easily made overtures with people she wanted to become friends with. In fact, Lisa made an overture with Francesca one day by simply introducing herself, and the two have been best friends ever since. I thought the orchestra played the overture to The Marriage of Figaro extremely well, setting the tone for the rest of the opera. Overture. Opening move. Proposition. Pact. The word pact means an agreement or covenant between two or more parties, nations, etc., for mutual advantage. Tiana, Jonathan, and Ethan had been friends for a long time, but they had recently started getting into too many arguments with each other. They decided to make a pact to reverse this trend and to get their friendship back on track. The pact stated that if a disagreement were to occur again, the friends would forgive and forget within 5 minutes of starting the fight, no matter what. Pact. Agreement. Covenant. Pamper. The word pamper means to treat or gratify with extreme or excessive indulgence, kindness, or care. Sheila the poodle loved for her two adoring owners to pamper her. She wouldn't settle for any treatment that was less than indulgent. Both girls pampered Sheila by giving her only the finest things and always making sure she was well groomed. Pamper. To indulge. To coddle. Quest. The word quest means a search or pursuit made to find or obtain something. After hearing a legend that said a treasure chest could be found on the top of Elf Mountain, Paolo, Gregory, and Patrick went on a quest to find it. Their quest was long and difficult, as they had to hike up the entire mountain. However, their quest ended up being successful, because the treasure chest was waiting for them at the top of the mountain. Quest. Search. Mission. Random. The word random means proceeding, made, or occurring without definite aim, reason, or pattern. Hannah had to pick a number at random to choose who her new lab partner would be. She reached her hand into the box of randomly numbered balls and chose a ball at random. She wished she could just pick her best friend, but she had to choose at random instead. Random, without definite pattern, haphazard, arbitrary. Rant. The word rant means to speak or declaim extravagantly or violently, talk in a wild or vehement way. When John told Alec that he was uninvited to John's birthday party, Alec spoke non-stop about how unfair the situation was. He ranted about all the reasons that he should be invited to the party over anyone else. This rant, however, did not make John change his mind in the slightest. Rant. To speak vehemently, to rave. Reinforce. The word reinforce means to strengthen with some added piece, support, or material. After last spring's heavy rains, the embankment along the river had eroded, and the town needed to reinforce it to prevent flooding when hurricane season started. So they hired a company to build strong concrete pilings and barriers to add to the existing structure. Now that the embankment has been reinforced, there is much less risk of the river overflowing and flooding the town. Reinforce, to strengthen, to fortify, to support, to bolster. Reputable. The word reputable means held in good repute, honorable, respectable. Jack was the most reputable doctor in town. He had won countless awards and plaques for his reputable services as a family physician. He was unanimously agreed to be a kind, caring, and reputable practitioner, and everyone felt safe and trusting when they sought his medical advice and care. Reputable, honorable, respectable. Seclusion. The word seclusion means the state of being withdrawn from social contact. Retirement, solitude. Even though Brenda loved hanging out with her friends, she sometimes needed to find seclusion for some peace and quiet. Her favorite place to experience seclusion was on the hammock in her backyard. She loved to lie in the hammock, bask in the sun, and read by herself. Seclusion, solitude, privacy, isolation. Stalemate. The word stalemate means any position or situation in which no action can be taken or progress made. Deadlock. Marina and Hubie were star-crossed lovers who wanted to be together for the holidays. However, they reached a stalemate when they realized that the two icebergs they inhabited were too far away from each other. They could have perhaps conquered over the stalemate if they had chosen to swim in the extremely cold waters so they could reach each other, but neither was willing to do it. After playing for several hours, the chess players realized that the only possible end to the game was in a stalemate. Neither one could win. Stalemate, deadlock, impasse. Status. The word status means the position of an individual in relation to another or others, especially in regard to social or professional standing. Ned previously had a low social status because he was considered a nerd. However, when his classmates finally realized that being smart is the key to being rich and successful, his status quickly changed. Now he is the most popular boy in school. Status. Position of an individual in relation to others. Rank. Prestige. Stodgy. The word stodgy means old-fashioned, unduly formal, or traditional. Bob was a very stodgy gentleman who loved to talk endlessly about the opera, theater, and fine wines. His young nephew, Arthur, was always bored and annoyed by Bob's stodgy behavior. Arthur decided that sleeping through Bob's stodgy speeches was the best way to get through spending time with him. Stodgy, old-fashioned, formal, stuffy. Turmoil. The word turmoil means a state of great commotion, confusion, or disturbance. Tumult, agitation, disquiet. The 1850s were a period of turmoil in the United States. Slavery and states' rights were primary issues between northern and southern states, and the discord between the two groups grew more agitated as the decade went on. By 1861, war broke out, throwing the country into even more violent turmoil for the next 4 years. Turmoil, commotion, agitation. Veto. The word veto means to reject a proposed bill or enactment by exercising a veto. The president did not veto many bills that the legislative branch proposed to him. He often agreed with its proposals and had no need to veto them. However, once in a while he disagreed and had to veto a proposed bill instead of approving it. Veto. To reject a proposed bill. To refuse. To turn down. Wilt. The word wilt means to become limp and drooping. To wither. Wilting is a natural part of any flower's life. However, it is always sad to see flowers wilt and die. Some people prefer to have fake flowers in their home so that the flowers will never wilt. Wilt. To sag. To droop. To wither. Adequate. The word adequate means as much or as good as necessary for some requirement or purpose, fully sufficient, suitable, or fit.